There was a piece today, no, it was over the weekend, by USA Today columnist Nancy Armour. Nancy Armour is up in arms over ESPN's Sam Ponder, who spoke out for fairness in sport, saying we shouldn't allow, I mean, she didn't say this explicitly, but basically said she's come around on the issue of girl sports and not allowing trans kids to come in and take over and win all the titles in the girl sports. It's always the male who comes into the girls' sport and wins. And Nancy's very upset with Sam Ponder because Sam Ponder wasn't tweeting and writing notes about other Title IX fights that apparently Nancy has written about. So Sam Ponder, you see, is a hypocrite because she's taken up this fight but didn't take up all the others. But Nancy Armour, she's not a hypocrite for taking up the others but ignoring this one. See, it only works one way. And in Nancy's little article in USA Today, she brings yours truly into it, saying, dig a little deeper into Ponder's timeline, and it's clear her hostility toward transgender women. By the way, there's no hostility by Sam Ponder, none at all. It's about sports. Goes far beyond their participation in sports. In January, she replied, yes, thank you, to Megyn Kelly's screed about a transgender woman going to the gynecologist. Quoting me, you can't just become a woman and take all of our things, Kelly ranted. Nancy goes on, I'm at a loss to see how a transgender woman going to a gynecologist takes anything away from anyone or how it's any of Kelly's or Ponder's business. Well, Nancy, I'm an actual woman who goes to a gynecologist, so it is my business. As far as I can tell, Nancy has no children of her own, no daughter to protect. And I'll tell you something, Nancy has a way of firing you up about this issue. And Sam Ponder lives her life in the area of sports and coverage of them and sees firsthand every day. And I think she's a mother too. But as far as a gynecologist's office, Michael, this is the thing that bothers me. So it's fine. The left will cancel you for culturally appropriating a taco, but it's totally fine for a man to culturally appropriate everything there is to appropriate about a woman, from building a fake vagina to then going to a gynecologist's office, which no man needs, and making the rest of us sit there and wait. If I go into my gynecologist's office and I see some dude with a beard and I've got to wait to go in, I'm never going back there again. It's bullshit. Those visits in particular, the breast doctor, the mammogram, the gynecologist, those are already tense visits for most women. They're already tense. You know, there's like 50% of the things you could die of are waiting for you in these two exam rooms. And we don't need it complicated by a man sitting there in yet another woman's space. Nancy. So this is what happens, right? Is like you get people like this trying to call everybody a transphobe, Sam Ponder, old Nancy in her judgmental corner, for people like you, for people like me who actually find the nerve to say no, to draw that, to find, even for me, right? I'm to the left of you on this, but to finally find my own line and say no.
I love, Megyn, how it's always the leftists who tell us it takes a village. That's the title of Hillary Clinton's memoir, who, when it comes to our private property and many of our private decisions, they say, no, we're all part of society. You can't have your gun. We're all part of society. No, you can't educate your child. No, you can't keep your money. No, you can't live in your zoning area of your neighborhood. No, you can't build this part of your house. No, you can't do this, that, or the other thing. But then, when it comes to transgenderism or whatever the social fad du jour is, they say, well, how does it affect you? How does it affect you, Megyn, if there's a burly fellow with a beard waiting in the gynecologist office who's going to make you wait? And the answer to this, of course, is because we live in society. Because man is the social creature. We don't live as floating atoms somewhere in the middle of the sea. We interact with one another, and we're in political community. And I don't think it's too much to ask, if you're a woman, to be able to go to the gynecologist's office without having to pretend that some big husky guy is a woman. And I don't think it's too much to ask to say that in a public school where parents are footing the bill and we're sending our kids, that the child not be exposed to gay porn in the form of Gender Queer by Maya Kababi, to cite just one book. And I don't think it's too much to ask even to say that when we're walking around our town square or our shops or our whole culture, we're not just constantly inundated by this absurd transgender propaganda all the way down to 3-month-old onesies. We live in society. We're supposed to have a self-government here. why can't we set standards and norms that are standard and normal? Have we lost that right? The only right that we have now is to set standards and norms that are abnormal, that involve a big fella in your gynecologist's office? No,
Right,
how come it
right.
only moves in that one direction? It's crazy.
And Michael, let me tell you something. When you go in for a mammogram, you know, I had to start getting them, I think, at 45. I can't remember when I started getting them, but you go in there, and that's always a scary one, right? Because you're there to look for cancer. I mean, that's the only reason. You go to the GYN for a lot of reasons, but you go there to catch it. So you go and you put on your little robe, and then they have you sit in a little like waiting area. This is where I go in New York. You have to sit in this little waiting area. It's a small little room, and there's maybe 4 or 5 other women also wearing the little robe. We're all there for the same reason. And there's a tension. There's a bonding. There's something kind of lovely about it, to be honest with you, because it's like we're all there for the same thing. We're all hoping for the same result. We're all a little scared we're going to get something else. And then they call you out one by one. You go get the test, and then you got to go back into the waiting room until you get called in by the radiologist who will tell you what the results were. So the whole thing is a little tense. And I do not want to see a fucking man sitting in there with me and my fellow women who actually do have things to worry about, who don't. It's hard enough to get in for these visits to the best doctors and go through all this stuff and deal with the insurance, all that. It's absurd to pretend like, how does it affect your life? It affects my life in very vulnerable situations in which I already feel unsteady, Nancy. And so if people like Sam Ponder and you and me don't speak out because of these nasty USA Today pieces or what have you, we lose. We've been losing too long because those of us who didn't draw the line at the LGB, the B, whatever, and the T, LGB.
The QIA,
we didn't draw the line.
element of P.
Yeah. We finally found our line. And now they're basically like, well, camel's nose, you're done. You know, like now you're a bigot. You know, you don't get any credit for your priors. I want to say 2 things.
Think about
Yeah,
Megyn, the big case, one of the big cases that established this right to transgenderism as a matter of civil rights law, it was the Harris Funeral Homes case. Everyone talks about the Bostock decision, which changed the interpretation of Title VII to now say that the protections on the basis of sex now don't protect sex, they protect sexual orientation and gender identity, which obviously undermines that.
In the workplace only.
There was the Harris Funeral Homes case, and that case centered around whether a man who works at a funeral home can be made to dress in respectful, somber garb as a man, because a man who worked at a funeral home decided he wanted to put on a skirt one day because he wanted to pretend to be a woman. And the owner of that funeral home said, hey man, I don't know what you're going through, and I'm not judging or anything like that, but this is a funeral home. People are mourning. People are really vulnerable and upset when they come in here. And we're not going to make it about us, and we're not going to make it about our fantasies and delusions or anything else. We're going to be respectful and behave in a way that is normal and reverent and somber for this occasion. And the Supreme Court got to pick. Who gets to decide? The community, the people mourning, tradition, standards, or a man who wants to put on a mini skirt while families are trying to grieve their loved ones. And unfortunately, the Supreme Court chose the latter, and now we've got a regime of tyrannical self-expression that has corroded anything even resembling a coherent society.
Look, you did the tough thing during COVID. You paid your people and pulled your business through the pandemic. And now doing the tough thing could qualify you for up to $26,000 per employee at covidtaxrelief.org. Government funds are available right now to reward companies with 2 or more employees who stayed open during COVID. This is not a loan, and you don't have to pay it back. The program's complicated, but no one knows more about it than the CPAs and tax pros at covidtaxrelief.org. You pay nothing up front. They do all the work and share a percentage of the cash they get you. Businesses of all types, including nonprofits and churches, can qualify, even those who took PPP loans, and even if you had increases in sales. You did the tough thing for your employees during COVID. Now let covidtaxrelief.org help get you up to $26,000 per employee. Visit covidtaxrelief.org, covidtaxrelief.org, covidtaxrelief.org. Hey, thanks so much for watching. If you like what you just saw, hit the subscribe button for more clips and full episodes.